keen sense of purpose honed by decades of confrontation with the West. An examination of the ironies of Iranian power and the fault lines within the country, on display in the recent presidential election, offer a particularly revealing starting point for rethinking the true challenges and prospects in transforming relations with the Muslim world. Iran's saber-rattling and the Bush administration's hardline stance, now being softened by the Obama administration, have diverted attention from important truths that belie the received wisdom regarding the Iranian threat, and those truths speak volumes about opportunities around the wider region. The recent history of Iran's relations with the West is surely deeply troubling. Iran's revolution empowered a particularly uncompromising brand of Islam that has turned anti-Americanism into an article of faith in much of the Muslim world, and Iran's rulers have steadily supported terrorism with money, training, and weaponry. Iran now openly seeks great power status and is building a nuclear program. Making matters worse in recent years was the more antagonistic approach to dealing with Iran that was adopted by the Bush administration, and the badly managed prosecution of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For much of the past 3 decades, the United States and Iran were locked in a stalemate, with no diplomatic relations, but also not much in the way of direct confrontation. America was content to isolate Iran as much as possible while waiting for the clerical regime to succumb to perceived inevitable internal pressures for change. In the wake of 9/11, that approach changed. The Bush administration believed it could nudge history along. Veterans of Reagan-era Cold War politics, the so-called neoconservative hawks who gathered around Vice President Dick Cheney and Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, drew confidence from what they perceived as the U.S. role in helping to toss communism onto the ash heap of history. They believed the toppling of Saddam Hussein and the rise of a reasonably stable, democratic new Iraq next door to Iran would stir Iranians into revolt and sufficiently unnerve the country's clerical rulers to provide that opening. The bitter irony was that when American troops showed up in Iraq, the grip of Iran's ruling clerics was strengthened. By breaking the Taliban regime in Afghanistan in late 2001, toppling Saddam, and then uprooting Baathism in Iraq, the United States removed local rivals that had contained Iranian power to its east and west. Since the Shah's time, and more so after the Islamic Revolution, Saddam's military had been the main barrier to Iran's expansionist aims. Today, there is no indigenous military force in the Persian Gulf region capable of containing Iran. What's more, in the political vacuum that followed Saddam's fall, Shia Iran quickly extended its reach into the predominantly Shia lands of southern Iraq. Many of Iraq's new leaders had spent years of exile in Iran and relied on Iranian support during the dark years of Saddam's rule. It was no coincidence that Iran was the first of Iraq's neighbors to recognize its new government and to encourage Iraqis to participate in the political order established by the United States. Now Iran runs extensive intelligence and political networks that give the Islamic Republic influence at every level of Iraq's bureaucracy, clerical and tribal establishments, and security agencies, impacting election results, the flow of trade, and the tempo of violence. Iranian leaders are keenly aware of how their regional influence has grown since 2001, and especially since 2003. Former President Mohammad Khatami, the one-time great hope of the reformers in Iran, captured this sentiment when I asked him in 2007 about how he assessed Iran's place in the region. Regardless of where the United States changes regimes, he observed, it is our friends who will come to power. True enough, Tehran has more impact on Arab politics, especially in the critical zones of Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestine, than it did 10 years ago. Not only does Iran's influence in Iraq far exceed that of any Arab government, but since the war between Hezbollah and Israel in the summer of 2006, Iran has gained more say in Lebanon's domestic politics as well, pushing for Hezbollah's interests and constricting politicians favored by the United States or Iran's Arab rivals.